Hey guys, so it's time for an updated video on the show me tell me questions, as it's been a while since I did the last one. So these are two questions that you will get asked on your driving test. The tell me question will be asked before you drive off, and the show me question will be asked on the move. I shouldn't, but I will tell you that you can't fail for getting the tell me question wrong. But that doesn't mean you're not going to revise these questions, because the last thing you want to do is start your driving test with a driving fault and showing the examiner that you couldn't be bothered to revise the answers. But for the show me questions, you can fail on those. I'll explain exactly how you can fail just before we start the show me questions. Let's start off with the tell me questions, and guys, please subscribe for more driving test content. Tell me how you check that the brakes are working before starting a journey. Explain that the brakes shouldn't feel spongy or slack, and the brakes should be tested as you set off. And when you brake, the vehicle should not pull to one side. Tell me where you'd find the information for the recommended tyre pressures for this car and how tyre pressures should be checked. You'll find the information in the manufacturer's guide. Use a reliable pressure gauge. Check and adjust pressures when tyres are cold, and don't forget the spare tyre. And also remember to refit valve caps. Tell me how you make sure your head restraint is correctly adjusted so it provides the best protection in the event of a crash. The head restraint should be adjusted so that the rigid part, that's normally the centre part of the head restraint, is at least as high as the eye or top of the ears, and as close to the back of the head as is comfortable. And note that some restraints might not be adjustable. Tell me how you check the tyres to ensure that they have sufficient tread depth and their general condition is safe to use on the road. There should be no cuts or bulges around the tyre, and there should be 1.6mm of tread depth across the central 3/4 of the breadth of the tyre and around the entire outer circumference of the tyre. Tell me how you check that the headlights and taillights are working. You don't need to exit the vehicle. Explain that you turn on the ignition and then operate the light switch. Once you've switched the headlights on, you would walk around the vehicle. Remember, this is a tell me question, so you don't need to physically walk around the vehicle, just explain. Tell me how you'd know if there was a problem with your anti-lock braking system. Explain that the warning light should illuminate if there is a fault with the anti-lock braking system. Tell me how you check the direction indicators are working. You don't need to exit the vehicle. Explain that you would turn on the ignition and then switch on the indicators. The other way you could do it is by switching on the hazard warning lights. And then you would walk around the vehicle to check. Again, remember, this is a tell me question, so you won't physically need to walk around the car. Tell me how you check the brake lights are working on this car. Explain that you'd operate the brake pedal, make use of reflections in windows or doors, or ask someone to help. Tell me how you check the power assisted steering is working before starting a journey. If the steering becomes heavy, the system may not be working properly. Before starting a journey, two simple checks can be made. Gentle pressure on the steering wheel, maintained while the engine is started, should result in a slight but noticeable movement as the system begins to operate. Alternatively, turning the steering wheel just after moving off will give an immediate indication that the power assistance is functioning. In simple terms, when you switch on the car, the steering should feel light. Tell me how you switch on the rear fog lights and explain when you'd use them. You don't need to exit the vehicle. In some vehicles, you will need to turn on the ignition and switch on your dipped headlights first, and then switch on your rear fog light. This warning sign will appear when your rear fog light is on. Explain that you would use a rear fog light when the visibility is reduced to around 100 meters or less. Tell me how you switch your headlight from dip to main beam and explain how you'd know the main beam is on. Firstly, you would turn on the ignition or start the engine if necessary. Once your dipped headlights are on, you would either pull the stalk towards you or push it away to switch on the main beam. Explain that you know the main beam is on because of this warning sign here. For the remaining three tell me questions, you will need to know how to open the bonnet. There's normally a lever inside the car which you pull to open the bonnet, and before lifting the bonnet, there's a latch which you have to pull to the side in order to release so you can lift it up. Make sure the bonnet is secured. Open the bonnet and tell me how you check that the engine has sufficient oil. I'm going to show you what to do, but remember you won't have to do this, just explain it. Identify the dipstick and then explain that you would take the dipstick out, clean it, dip it back in, and then when you take it back out, you would check the level against the minimum and maximum markers. Open the bonnet and tell me how you check that the engine has sufficient engine coolant. Identify the high and low level markings on the header tank where fitted, or radiator filler cap, so those would be the maximum and minimum markings, and explain that when you top it up you would make sure that the level is in between those two markings. Open the bonnet and tell me how you check that you have a safe level of hydraulic brake fluid. Identify the brake fluid reservoir, which normally has this marking on top, and then check the level against the high and low markings. A quick break here guys, for those of you that are learning to drive, make sure to download the Ultimate Driving Course app. It's basically like having me as your instructor. There's a video covering every single topic required to pass the driving test. Just watch the relevant video before each lesson and enter the car with the correct knowledge. No more wasting valuable lesson time parked up. On average, you'll save around 15 to 20 minutes per lesson, helping you learn quicker and save money on driving lessons. It's available to download on both Android and iOS. Now let's move on to the show me questions. The only way you can get the show me question wrong isn't if you get the incorrect answer. It's if you lose control. So say for example the examiner's asked you a question and you're looking for the controls, you're looking down and the car's drifting to one side, the examiner has to intervene. Obviously that would be a serious fault for your steering or control. So make sure when the examiner does ask you one of the show me questions, don't rush, keep good control of the car, hands on the steering, look ahead, make sure the road's nice and clear, there's no obstructions ahead, and then answer this question. You don't have to answer it straight away. Right, let's move on to these questions. When it's safe to do so, can you show me how you wash and clean the rear windscreen? In this car, you push the wiper stalk away from you. In some vehicles, there will be a button at the end of the stalk which you push, or you may need to twist the stalk. When it's safe to do so, can you show me how you wash and clean the front windscreen? In this car, you pull the wiper stalk towards you. When it's safe to do so, can you show me how you switch on your dipped headlights? Twist the switch to the dipped headlight symbol, which is this one. When it's safe to do so, can you show me how you set the rear demister? That's this button with the rectangular sign with the arrows. When it's safe to do so, can you show me how you'd operate the horn? This one's probably the easiest one, just sound the horn. When it's safe to do so, can you show me how you demist the front windscreen? If your car has this quick clear feature, then you can just press this button. If not, then you would direct the air to the screen using this button here, turn up the temperature, and then turn up the fan speed. When it's safe to do so, can you show me how you'd open and close the side window? Find the correct button for your window, push it down, and then pull it back up. So those are all the show me tell me questions. Make sure you revise them before your test, and any of you that have got your test coming up, good luck.